Betty Rudine and her daughter Karen Rademacher will give us a little information on genealogy, a quilt that was made, and a trip that was made to Sweden. Karen has been interested in genealogy for quite a few years. How did you first get interested in genealogy, Karen?
Well, Mom's sister Jane put together a family history book back in the late 70s, and she had interviewed family members all around Nebraska and compiled it all into a family book, and every one of the then grandchildren of Herman and Thelma got a copy, and it just captured my imagination, and I was determined after that to extend those family lines as far back as I could and find every ancestor that I could. And so I just sort of got hooked. And we're fortunate to be Swedish because the Swedes have the best genealogical records really in the world. And the records kept by the Lutheran Church in Sweden are extremely detailed. And you can find not only names and dates, but stories and occupations, and you can trace their movements through Sweden and when they move from farm to farm. So we're real lucky to have that heritage because it makes for exciting genealogy.
So eventually the interest became to having a trip to Sweden to see some of the origins of our families, ancestors. How did the trip to Sweden come about?
Well, because of our Swedish ancestry, it would be very interesting for us to go and find places and events that were important to our families. And so it was a very exciting and wonderful thing that we were able to do, to go and visit all of these special places.
So one of your ancestors has a connection to Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Ceresco.
That's true. The Broad family was instrumental in the founding of Emmanuel Lutheran Church. And we, of course, wanted to visit the churches that were important to our family history. And we did visit one of the churches in Sweden that the Broads were attending before they came to America. And we found something very interesting in the church that we visited there. And Karen will tell us about it.
So, Anders Gustav Broad is my great-grandfather, and he was born in a part of Sweden that's north and east of Gothenburg. And we knew from the genealogical church records what church he was baptized in, and so that was on our list of places to visit. And so we found this little church. It was behind the railroad tracks, kind of hard to find, at the end of a dirt road. And when we got in, and it happened to be unlocked because the caretaker, I think, was mowing the lawn or raking the gravel or something. So we were able to get inside the church, just luckily. And when we got inside the church and saw a painting behind the altar of Peter faltering in the water, and Jesus is reaching out to save him. And Mom recognized right away the similarities between that painting and the altar painting in Ceresco. And in fact, when you put them side by side, to me, it's obvious that Mom's great-grandfather had a hand in selecting that painting because he was on the committee that started that church and would have been, I would guess, pretty involved in commissioning the work that would be hanging behind the altar. So I think there's a pretty clear connection in his memory of the painting he saw as a child, and then the painting that he selected to be in his church.
In visiting one area of Sweden where the Rudin family originated, we visited some churches there, and what piqued your interest in a particular church where the Rudin family started?
Okay, so this is my dad's side of the family, the Rudin family, and we knew from the genealogy records that this family had been in this particular church for generation after generation, probably 5 or 6 generations in the records, and probably there before the records started. So a long time ancestral church. And again, we were able to get inside the church, and it's an amazing preservation of folk art. And the ceilings and the walls are embellished with these folk paintings that tell little Bible stories and creation images, and embellished with oak motif and acorns. And the Rudin family farm is right next door, and the name of the farm is Eket, which translates as oak. So it was really special to see all this folk art in our family church and the connection that it had to the farm next door. And so we took a lot of pictures of the interior of the church and the paintings, and it inspired Mom to be creative with the quilt.
Yes, when I looked at the ceiling, I said, Karen, if you take some pictures, I believe I can make a quilt from this folk art. And that's what we did.
So I have hanging on the wall in my living room a memento of my family history that harkens back to the folk art inside the Rudin Family Church back in Sweden. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Betty and Karen. We'll take a look at the quilt now.